Hi, welcome to CSM Mistakes Were Made. These are some socks I just finished on my new Lamb LT150, and I'm getting a little bit better at cranking socks. I wanted to share some of what I've been doing right, finally. You'll see that I cranked these toes on the top half of the foot so that the Kitchener can be on the bottom, and I wish I hadn't done that, but let me know in the comments if you think a dedicated conventional toe would be helpful for you in doing toes on your lamb. Anyway, it's super fun, and thanks for watching CSM Mistakes Were Made. I am going to make the second sock, just like this one. This is the yarn. It's a Lang product. This is a sock that had a Juana's 1x1 cast on, 20 rows of 1x1. I swapped out to a 5x1 ribbing pattern. I did a 10-row pre-heel, a +1 heel, and then I did 70 rows for the foot. I've got my 66 slot cylinder on this Lamb LT150 with a 33 slot ribber cone. I'm going to remove every other needle and start with a 1x1 cast on. I'll be back when I've done that. Okay, I have loaded my cast on bonnet, a couple rows of green waste yarn, and we'll crank that until we can stop at the green needle, which is right here. We'll put this green needle outlined in green on either side over here by this winged yarn guide. I'm able to end that waste yarn right on the green needle, start a row of ravel cord, also at the green needle, ending at the green needle, pulling it through. I'm pretty much set to go with this. We'll put it through the winged yarn guide, have it start at needle number 1, which is the green needle, of course. And I don't need anything fancy right now. I will reset my counter, and we'll go to once around and then 3/4 of the way around, so the green needle ends up at the spring rest. Next is to get the ribber cone, fit it into the slot, and make sure that this is kind of aligned with the green needle, and there it is. So it's in there. Snug that up a little bit, and pulling the adjacent needle forward, I put 2 strands on this ribber needle all the way around. The important thing to do before you get too far is to swap the yarn from this winged yarn guide over to the tall yarn guide, because that's the yarn guide that is needed for cranking with the ribber. Tighten that up, remove the slack, and I think we're ready to go. Okay, so I'll be back when I finish. All right, I'm putting in the last 2 ribber needles. All right, we got a 1x1 situation going here. Everything looks good. This is the green needle that should wake up my counter, let's hope. 2. I think I'm gonna advance it because I think it should be on 3. So just take a magnet and advance it. So 18, and then we're going to stop with this when it gets to 20 to switch to 5x1. So that's 19, there's 20, and it'll go around 3/4 of the way essentially. And now we will swap out the cylinder needles for a 5x1 rib. Put the spring on the spring rest, starting with needle number 1 is the green needle. I'm going to take the one just to the left of it and flip it over. So I'll leave the next ribber needle in place and advance so that I've got some cylinder needles right in front of me to swap. And you do this all the way around, and I'll be back when I'm done with this. And this is the last ribber needle that needs to become a cylinder for a 5x1 rib pattern for the leg. Check latches. We're still in cylinder mode. We're still using the tall yarn guide because that's what you need for the ribber to be able to get the stitches. So I'm going to crank up to 90. Go slow to make sure they all catch. So I'm about right here, and I'm going to take some of these ribber needles out to replace with cylinder needles so that we can get a nice smooth fabric for the back of the foot. We're going to keep the ribbing down the front of the foot, but we're going to remove some at the 90th row. So I wanted to show, this is 84. I kind of slow down and I pay attention. 85, 86, 87, 88, 89. The next step is to take all of the ribber needles out in this half of the cylinder. These will remain. These will be the top of the foot, and this will be the back of the ankle and the bottom of the foot. Now I've been removing anything that's super close to the edge where I'll be doing my short rows. Most people would start with any needle, any ribber needle to the left of the green, but I start with that one that's awful close. I don't know that it's entirely necessary, but that's sort of what I've been doing. It was just to avoid having tugged stitches that are ribber stitches, that are purl stitches. So you can see that that ribber stitch remained in work all the way down through the top of the foot. This one is one I swapped out that actually did probably strictly belong to the front part of the foot, the top part of the foot, but I thought it would end up too close to that little pivot point. Whenever stitches change direction, there's a little tugging phenomenon here, and so it's kind of conventional wisdom to just go ahead and remove anything that's kind of close to that pivot point. All right, so we are now done with swapping all of the needles that were here. This will be the bottom of the foot, the back of the ankle. We're going to continue to 100, and then we're going to start the heel. This is 10 rows of a preheel. And as with any kind of cranking, until you get very, very good and develop all the muscle memory and all of the skill, you need to kind of plan your next move. I'm at 97. I'm going to crank so that the 100th row is 98. This is 100. Now I'm going to change from cylinder mode to camshell mode because we're going to do a heel. So now that we've done 100 rows, I'm gonna go around, and now when this blue dot is at about 12 o'clock, I start feeling under my machine, and I do the one over on that side and one over on this side. That goes to neutral. And I will then push this plunger down, and older machines do have two, but I've only got one on this newer machine. And now I've got to transfer the yarn from the tall yarn guide to this winged yarn guide. This is the preliminary crank in the uncomfortable direction. When it gets to 12, I think, okay, I know I need to do some other things, and here are the other things I need to do. Of course, we need to raise needles out of work in the back half. And we'll do that now. Ordinarily, you want to raise half, 33 in this case, but I'm going to leave 35 needles in work. I'm going to put down the one right in front of the green and the one right down in front of the blue to make a slightly deep heel. It's very insignificant. The other thing I need to do is tighten up my tension up here, which you can't really see. It's a little knob. So when you're operating the machine to do heels and toes, you slightly increase the tension from about 0 to 2, and of course you put on the heel spring and then put my heel spring on, and that of course takes up the tension when you go back and forth. And I believe with that we are ready to start cranking the heel. I'm going this direction. I will lift a needle on the left side, crank, and lift a needle on the right side. And do this back and forth. I'm lifting needles until I get to these yellow target needles. And I'm pulling the fabric myself. And I think I need to add some weights. This weight, this V-fork, can't really see what you're doing. Unfortunately, when the ribber cone is on, somehow it seems to work out. That was a built-in interruption. You have to know where you were when you come back to your machine to start cranking. And I am going to look on the yarn side and check to see where the yarn is connected. And this yellow yarn is connected to a needle that is down, so I know I have to raise it. It is very awkward when the ribber cone is on, and I found the same thing with my old antique machine too, so you're working blind, so to speak. And okay, now I've got the last two. I'm going to raise the last two on the left together, and then raise the last two on the right together, and then lower these two and wrap them manually for the because these are doubled, and I don't want to take any chances, so I'm going to put that around there like so and crank a rope. Now these stitches are writing up, so bear with me while I take my V-hook and try to find a more optimal space for them. And when you see those stitches lower, then you know you've got a better situation. So now I'm lowering one at a time on each side. Okay, I'm coming out to my halfway marks, and I'm getting more comfortable. I probably shouldn't say that, it'll jinx me, but I know that this one will go as usual. This is my last one. It's really the blue painted needle. I did have this one in work for the decreases, but I won't put it back in work for the increases because I want to avoid a hole. So I'm going to go around. I'm going to lower this. This one goes without saying that you have to lower it to get the increase. But there's a lot more to consider with this. We have to go do a bunch of other things. We're going to put this back into cylinder mode. And it's also super easy to miss your opportunity. This plunger has to go around to here. I've got to pull 2 pins down there, and I am now in, hopefully, cylinder mode. The increase is going the way it should. I do need to lower these, and the other thing that I sometimes forget to do, but I'm trying to be more careful, is that in order for the heel to get cranked properly, you have to do a couple things way up at the top. I had to add a heel spring, so let's take that off. And the other thing, it's not huge compared to the last thing that I have to do, which of course is to re-engage the tall yarn guide. This wing yarn guide is great for heels and toes. It's a must for heels and toes for short rows, but it's the tall yarn guide that has to be in place for any of these ribbon needles to knit, and I do need them to start knitting now. I'm going to start my counter over. I believe I've got everything the way I want it. I'm going to be cranking 70 rows, I believe. So I will kind of go slow, and I'll meet you back here when we're about to work on, I'll call it a pre-toe. So I'll be right back. $69. I'm going to go around one more time because I need to actually stop so that I can swap out the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 remaining rubber cone needles. Most of the time we stop with a green needle in front, but at this juncture we want to stop with the blue needle in front and orient our work so that we can pop out these rubber needles or swap them. We will do that now. And all I need is 1 row to have a nice area of stockinette for grafting. That's the reason we're doing this. I think if I were a little bit more confident hand knitter, I wouldn't mind so much, but it's not my bag right now. I'm not interested too much in learning how to Kitchener with every 6 needle being a purl stitch. All right, so we've now done that. All of these will knit once with their newly placed cylinder stitches on them, all to say that I don't have to do another row. I've actually, this will actually complete in a nice way, and I'm gonna actually use my blue dot again that I place at 12 to clunk it into for clamshell mode. I can take this off actually. We now are in neutral, and we need to set ourselves up for cranking backwards, which we are. This yarn guide doesn't work so well for toes and heels, so we will put everything back into the winged yarn guide to get ourselves set up for a nice toe. Now here's the interesting thing that I did last time too. Let's see. I want to build my toe on this part of the machine. If we remember, the heel was done on this half where I have my target marks. I don't have target marks up here, but I'll deal with that. Why am I doing that? Well, because building a toe on the part of the cylinder that ends up under the foot, so to speak, is a good way to get a slightly better finished product for self-striping yarn. I don't think it matters too much in this case. So I'm going to lift needles. Now here is where it does get interesting for Lamb LT150 owners, because we have to really get used to what these painted needles mean. Taking the blue and green needles out of work leaves 33 needles in the toe area that we need. We need half, exactly half, to work this toe. Let's be sure if it's true. I don't know. I may have to put these last two down. I get kind of confused, so forgive me for that. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, 18, 20, 22, 4, 6, 8, 30. So 33. So to recap here while we're working, everything is snugged up. We're about ready to crank this way and then raise this needle for the first decrease. Then we'll crank back here. I've got myself set up for the graft to be on the undersurface of the sock instead of on top. And for no apparent reason, because as I mentioned, this would have just turned out all blue, whether it's on this part or this part. So that's kind of funny. But anyway, we do need to put the heel spring back on, and we'll do that right now. And I need to tighten my tension a little bit. For that to happen, we are using the wing yarn guide, which is where we need to be. We're in camshell mode. When this plunger is dead center, it's usually because you're in cylinder mode, but we're in camshell mode, and we're going to crank and lift a needle. We don't need the counter, so that is good. And again, I'm trying to cheat a little bit and hold the fabric with my hands and pulling it so that I don't have to use that V-hook. I'm going to start it now, because when those edge stitches start riding up, that's a sure sign that you are going to lose stitches. So here's the V-hook. I'm finding that if I load it with the weight ahead of time, it maybe is a little easier. So we will put that in here. Now, I don't have target needles painted back here, so I gotta kind of pay attention to how many I'm decreasing, so bear with me. That didn't seem to be wanting to pull down, so it pays to be a little distrusting. Oh, I did too. Okay, I think I better start counting. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decreases on that side. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 decreases on this side. So once I raise this, we'll be evened up. This will be 8. This will be 8. This will be 9. 9. And I should have 15 left. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15. Okay, so now I'm going to do the last 2 on the right together, and the last 2 on the left together for a rounded situation. Lower the last 2 together. Take a chance that they're going to knit from here. I'm seeing that they will. Lower these together. And the safest thing to do is that, but same outcome. Okay, then we'll lower this and lower this. Okay, we're closing in on the last ones, and we're gonna do this one by itself, this one by itself to match it, and now we have the last two, so we're gonna do these together. I have one pass too few for a complete sock because we all recognize that we need to do a grafting row. So by doing the two increases at the same time, you're preserving a space essentially for one extra row. All right, so I'm going to cut my yarn. I just love how this yarn guide moves out of the way. It's really great. Okay, so here's the end of the yarn. This is now, I want to watch it and make sure it catches under the hook of this first needle that's in work. And no real need to put your finger on there at all. And now I'll put all of these down. And I could be going my merry way and just finish this sock just the way things are set up now. I just have to recognize that I've got to keep cranking in this kind of backwards direction, which I don't love. But here's kind of a fun thing that I learned, because I don't like cranking like this, but if you don't like cranking in the uncomfortable direction, you can switch mid-row, and as soon as it catches, which sometimes it doesn't want to for some strange reason, there it goes, you can switch. And so this is cranking the way I want to crank. That was a totally unnecessary thing to do, but it does go to show that if you are in the wrong mode, if you're careful, you can do it in the correct mode. So I broke my waste yarn. I'm going to remove I pulled off this much yarn in order to try to get a match, which we'll see if I achieved. And that's 10 grams of yarn. And look, I still had some left over. I'm going to close the chapter on being fearful of playing yarn chicken. There's a particular yarn that I do like. I haven't bought it in a while, but I like it. It's called hawthorn yarn. And it's a little bit thicker yarn. The yardage is a little bit less. So if you wanted to crank big socks using hawthorn, you might have to do contrasting heels and toes. Now, look at this. Okay, this is the second sock. Some fixing to do there. I think I can catch that fine. I'll take a piece of the yellow yarn and latch hook all the way up and then do a duplicate stitch where the hole will be. So there's that. Not the worst problem in the world, but I didn't see that. Here's our foot. But I'm overall very happy with these. I'll get these all kitchenered and washed and blocked and